I think in this sutta study workshop, you will begin to see how much words we put into the Buddha's mouth. Or how we misconstrue what is found in the suttas according to our own understanding. So this is one of the main lessons that we learn in the sutta study workshop. Because it's so easy to form opinions, without actually getting any solid evidence from the suttas. We just form our opinions based on our past experiences and our past information, which may not even be relevant in the context of the sutta that we are studying. So this is something which you need to watch out for. In sutta study, we try to be objective. We don't try to speculate. I thought it was a simple and mechanical exercise to just tabulate the possible meanings of develop in body, etc. But it doesn't seem so easy for many of you. So I have done a tabulation and I printed out a hard copy, which I will distribute after I finish this, because what I'm showing you is more of a condensed version of what you see in the hard copy because of space limitation in the slides. Right? So after I've explained this using the slides, then when you look at the hard copy, you will have more understanding. And then you will make use of that tabulation for the next question, which is to determine the most appropriate meaning or meanings for these words, these terms in the context of our root sutta. Okay? MN 36 is the one that is most explicit. Actually, no. The guide is even more explicit, but MN 36 shows the Buddha's personal explanation, whereas the guide is the explanation given by the commentators. So here, to paraphrase what was said by the Buddha in MN 36, Mahasaccaka Sutta, develop in body means one who is not affected by pleasant feelings. Not affected in the sense that when pleasant feelings arise in him, he does not grasp at them, he does not attach to them. And when the pleasant feelings go away, he does not crave for them. In that way, he is not affected by pleasant feelings. Developed in mind, according to MN 36, as defined by the Buddha, means one who is not affected by painful feelings, in the sense that when one encounters painful feelings, one does not react against them by being angry or trying to push them away, reject them, being sad or sorrowful or disappointed, and so forth. According to the commentary to MN 36, development of body is equivalent to vipassanā, and development of mind is equivalent to samādhi. So the question is, why are pleasant feelings only connected with the body and not the mind? And why is vipassanā only connected with the body and not the mind? Correct? It's a very logical question. And why is it that when one is developed in mind, it's only relevant to one's reaction towards painful feelings and not towards pleasant feelings? This is quite a riddle. That's because the word body here is an English translation of the word kāya. You all know the word kāya? If you are familiar with the four establishments of mindfulness, satipatthana, you will know that the first one is kāya-nupassana, contemplation of the body. The second is vedana-nupassana, contemplation of feelings. The third is citta-nupassana, contemplation of the mind or mental states. And the fourth one is dhamma-nupassana, contemplation of the Dhamma or contemplation of mental phenomena, mental objects. The problem is because of this translation. When you translate kāya as body, automatically we will think of the body. Correct? Because that's what the word, the spelling B-O-D-Y stands for, the body. But kāya need not necessarily have that meaning. In most cases, it does have the meaning of the body. But in rare cases, like this one, it doesn't have the meaning of the physical body. I will come to that later in more detail, but this is just to forewarn you. And it may be easier for you to understand if we look at what the commentary says. There's some truth in what the commentary says regarding vipassana being able to help the yogi not to be affected by pleasant feelings. Why? Because if one does vipassana, one's practice is to observe, let go. Observe, let go, understand. Observe, let go, understand. Correct. You're trying to see things arising and passing away, trying to see things in terms of anicca, dukkha, anatta, impermanent, unsatisfactory or suffering and not self. That's the whole purpose of vipassana. So when the vipassana yogi comes into contact with pleasant feelings in the course of his or her meditation, it is also not an object to cling to, because the vipassana yogi has been trained right from the beginning to let go, right? Never cling to anything. Whatever arises, you watch, let go, watch, let go, watch, let go, in order to see the three characteristics. So when pleasant feelings arise also, because the mind has been trained, it will not cling. It will not be attached to it. In fact, the mind will be very careful. Oh, this is pleasant feeling. Make sure that it doesn't cling. Right? If you are vipassana yogi, you will know that. Now, for someone who has never done vipassana before, who starts meditating by training himself along the samatha path, or the popular samatha path. The popular samatha path is to focus your attention on one single object to the exclusion of everything else. When you do that, your mind becomes very focused and concentrated. You're just focusing on one object and you're oblivious to anything else that happens. That will bring about very nice, peaceful, pleasant feelings, and also joy and rapture and a whole lot of pleasant feelings. That yogi, if he or she has not done any vipassana before, can get stuck there for a long, long time, because it's such a nice feeling. And it's just human nature to be attached to nice, pleasant feelings. Don't talk about spiritual feelings, even very worldly feelings. Everybody likes anything that brings you pleasant feelings in the world, correct? So, not to talk about spiritual feelings, because they're even more aesthetic than worldly feelings. So that's why there are many meditation teachers, especially from the Thai tradition, who have done a lot of samatha before, and they got stuck there for many, many years, and finally something happened and they dropped them and they did vipassana, and after that they keep on telling their students, don't get stuck in samatha, after they got stuck for 20 years. So that's why when one does not do vipassana, one does only samatha, then the tendency is to be affected by pleasant feelings, in a sense of clinging to them, grasping after them, attached to them. So there's some truth in what the commentary says, is that when you develop vipassana, then you will not be attached to pleasant feelings. Why is that so? Why is there a difference between this popular samatha practice and vipassana practice? Because, as I said, the principle of vipassana is to observe, let go, understand. Observe, let go, understand. Correct? The purpose of the popular samatha practice is to focus, hold on to, and not let go. You have to focus and hold on to the object. Right? Don't let anything distract you from that object. And in some meditation practices, they encourage you to evoke a nimitta, a mental object. So you are supposed to maintain the mental object and make sure it doesn't disappear. Right? So the whole process of that popular samatha is to grasp at the object. Hold on to it, don't let go. Hold on to it, don't let go. So you train your mind to hold on. So people who do samatha become very focused. And they can also be focused when they're angry and when they're lustful. Same, it's a different object only. So some samatha yogis come back home after a few months of retreat, and then they find that, they become even more hot-tempered. And they burst out and explode even more. And they figure out, why? I thought I just came out from a retreat. What happened to me? That was what happened to a couple of yogis when they came for my retreat. And I explained to them, and then they only understood what happened. There was one yogi from Taipei who used to attend my retreats, and I teach mostly vipassanā. I also encourage people to explore other techniques, don't just stick to me. So she went to explore, she did a more pure samatha practice, just watching the breath and just doing your nimitta and holding on to your nimitta. She did that for a couple of months, or at least 1 month. Then when she went back home, she found that, her mind refused to think. Yeah, because thinking is a distraction. You just want to hold on to your object and don't want to do anything else, correct? And also her emotions became stronger. And then her children, her daughter commented, "Hey, mommy, you just came back from retreat. Are you sure you did the right thing? Last time you came back, it was different. Now you come back, you're even more hot-tempered. You flare even worse than before." Okay, anyway, so that is the difference. The difference between the popular samatha and vipassana is that vipassana teaches you to let go, samatha teaches you to hold on. Yeah, the two different techniques. That's why when it comes to pleasant things, you get stuck there for a long time. And I've several samatha yogis, many years, they have done anapana, just strict anapana. Come and do vipassana, very difficult to change to vipassana. Because the moment they try to observe many objects, their mind becomes very unsettled. They want to go back to their comfort zone. So that's one danger. That's why I don't encourage yogis to start off with samatha. I don't discourage samatha, but if you want to do samatha, do vipassana first. And after that, you go and do samatha. At least you know how to let go. Okay, but even though you practice vipassana, and you see things arise and pass away, you know that everything comes and goes. But when very painful feeling arises, if you don't have samadhi, don't watch. Because you can't handle them. There will be a lot of mental reaction in it. You'll get angry, you will get impatient, you get aversion, you want to fight with the pain, and then the whole body all tense up, it gets even more painful. Correct? If you're a yogi, you will know. So if you want to watch painful feelings, make sure you got good samadhi. That's why here, the commentary says, development of mind means samadhi. And when you have samadhi, you are not affected by painful feelings. Okay, so there's some truth in what the commentary says. Okay, let me go on the next one. This is our next 3 suttas, which I grouped together. AN 5.79, which is future perils. AN 10.24, which is Chunda Sutta. And SN 35.127, which is Bharadwaja Sutta. What you see in the slides is just first, second, third, fourth, and you might wonder what it means. Well, this is just to show you that they are all sequential. And these terms, develop in body, virtue, mind, and wisdom, were used in a fixed sequence, and they were used as a composite. None of these 3 suttas are explicit about what each of these terms mean. Correct? They just give you a composite usage of the 4 terms, and we are supposed to figure out what clues they can give us to understand more about what they mean. The commentary to the Bharadwaja Sutta, SN 35.127, tries to explain develop in body as restraint of the 5 senses. Okay, now I want to comment on these 3 suttas. All the 3 suttas don't tell us what each term means. We can see that although they use the same composite terms, they have different meanings. In AN 5.37, which is about future perils, how monks who are undeveloped in body, virtue, mind, and wisdom can cause the downfall of the Dhamma Vinaya, of the sasana. Correct? So if you look at it conversely, monks who are developed in body, virtue, mind, and wisdom would not cause the downfall of the sasana. That's why the Buddha warned the monks. So this is a future peril, so make sure that this doesn't happen. In other words, he's asking the monks to try to be developed in body, virtue, mind, and wisdom. But a monk who is developed in body, virtue, mind, and wisdom, and who doesn't cause the downfall of the Dhamma Vinaya, need not necessarily be an arahant. Correct? Must he be an arahant? Either arahant or below. He may not even be an arya. He may not even be a sotapan. But he is sufficiently developed in body, virtue, mind, and wisdom, and he will not cause the downfall of the Dhamma Vinaya. Okay? So that is the usage. It is used, but not in the context of an arahant. It could be an arahant or below. In the second context, in Sunda Sutta, it is definitely an arahant. Correct? Because anyone who claims to be developed in body, virtue, mind, and wisdom is someone whose mind should not be overcome by greed, hatred, delusion, and a host of other unwholesome mental states. Right? And only an arahant is able to do that. Only an arahant's mind is not overwhelmed by these unwholesome mental states. In Bharadwaja Sutta, SN 35.127, the usage of this composite term, developed in body, virtue, mind, and wisdom, was used by the king. King Vedena was the one who protested when Asma Pindola gave him the second answer, why the monks were able to restrain their sexual lust towards women by practicing the 31 parts of the body. Correct? And then the king says, well, this is not so easy. You can only effectively do it if you are developed in body, virtue, mind, and wisdom. Right? But this definitely does not mean an arahant, right? Arahant only to practice 31 parts of the body because he's got no lust. Correct? So the way the king understood developed in body, virtue, mind, and wisdom is not the qualities of an arahant, but a practicing monk who is sufficiently developed. Not necessarily to the highest state of arahantship. And definitely not an arahant. Okay? Now, in SN 35.127, while the king objected to the second answer by saying that one can only practice the 31 parts of the body if one is developed in body, virtue, mind, and wisdom, he approved of the third answer, which is guarding the six senses. So why is it that guarding the six senses is easier than developing body, virtue, mind, and wisdom? Why do you think so? Because guarding the six senses is only one. Develop in body, virtue, mind, and wisdom are four things to do, So this one is easier for him. Okay, here also, you see the commentary to SN 35.127 explains develop in body as restraint of the five senses. Right? So he seems to equate the word kāya, or body, to the five senses. But when the Buddha talks about restraint of the senses, he talks about all the six of them. Right? Not five, but six senses. So why is it that kāya refers only to five and not six senses? This is a question that we need to ask. You won't get the answer now. Perhaps later, as we go along, it might become clear to you. Now coming to AN 6.50, sense faculties. This will answer the question that I asked earlier. Why is it easier to guard the sense faculties, to be restrained in the senses, than to be developed in body, virtuous behavior, mind, and wisdom? Because in this sutta, we can see the sequence of development. Although the terms, the composite term, developed in body, virtue, mind, and wisdom are not used in this sutta, we can see a parallel progression. It starts off by sense restraint, leading to virtuous behavior, leading to samādhi, leading to various forms of wisdom. Correct? In that sutta, it even says that sense restraint is the proximate cause for virtuous behavior. Virtuous behavior is the proximate cause for right concentration. Right concentration is the proximate cause for wisdom, seeing things according to reality. So there is a sequence involved. So sense restraint is only the beginning of development in body, virtue, mind, and wisdom. Can you see that? That's why it's easier. Because it's only the beginning, it's not the whole thing. So again, there is a parallel sequence, although the words develop in body, virtue, mind and wisdom are not used. So here we look at it as implicit evidence rather than explicit evidence. Neti is the most straightforward of all. It gives you the answer on a plate. Right? Develop in body means right action, right effort. Develop in virtue means right speech, right livelihood. Develop in mind means right sati, right samadhi. Develop in wisdom means right view, right thought. Simple. The commentary to the Neti tries to give us more information. It tries to separate develop in body and develop in virtue. He says that develop in body is proper conduct and developed in virtue is conduct basic to the spiritual life. Now this may sound like hair-splitting to you. What's the difference between proper conduct and conduct basic to the spiritual life? Well, this is the way the commentary classifies amongst moral conduct. So not really applicable to you. The next one is also same. It's also the way the commentary classifies monkish conduct. And this is another way, another method. One is 5 sense restraint. Again, this sounds like the commentary to SN 35, to Bharadwaja Sutta. There also the commentary says develop in body means restraint of the 5 senses. So this commentary to the Neti, also gave one possible explanation of develop in body as restraint of the 5 senses. And then develop in virtue here is explained as compliant to Vinaya rules. Then we come back to our root sutta, and the commentary to our root sutta. It says that develop in body could also mean contemplation of the body. Here, this is the only commentary that tries to explain develop in body as contemplation of the body. Contemplation of the body is one of the 4 establishments of mindfulness, the first satipatthana. The commentary's explanation of the other terms are not really very helpful. They just provide synonym for the word developed. So for develop in virtue, they explain it as grown in virtuous behavior. Develop in mind, grown in the mind. Develop in wisdom, grown in wisdom. It's not very helpful. Just synonym for develop. Now, the other explanation is develop in body means 5 sense restraint, same as the other 2 commentaries. So altogether, 3 commentaries have been explaining develop in body as restraint of the 5 senses. But why? The Buddha always talked about restraint of the 6 senses. Why do they always stick to the 5 instead of 6? Like some of you try to put the mind under develop in mind, But they didn't even put develop in mind. They just stopped at the 5 sense restraint. So after explaining what is meant by develop in body, then he went on to describe what is meant by develop in virtue. And here he goes again to give you the commentarial classification of monkish conduct. Yeah. A monk is supposed to be pure in 4 ways. 1 is in sense restraint. 2 is in restraint according to the Patimokkha, the monastic code. 3 is to be pure in his livelihood, which means he doesn't go around doing fortune telling, giving people amulets and talismans, do feng shui, all these sort of things, charms, or trying to interpret dreams for people. These are not right livelihood. Then also wise reflection when using requisites. Before he eats, the monk is supposed to reflect to himself that he's taking this food not for enjoyment, not for putting on bulk, not for beautification, but merely for the sake of this holy life and to support this body, and so forth. So the commentary tries to split the 4-fold purity of a monk into 5 sense restraint for develop in body, and then the rest for develop in virtue. And the commentary also says that in the context of our root sutta, develop in body, in virtue, in mind and wisdom, all refer to the qualities of an arahant, not less. We saw earlier in the 3 suttas, in future perils, it is either an arahant or below. In the case of Chunda Sutta, it is an arahant. In the case of Bharadwaja Sutta, it is not an arahant, correct? But here, in this case, it is an arahant, according to this commentary. And I quite agree with this. Why? Because the Buddha talked about making an end of suffering right from the beginning. Right? The first paragraph already said, if a person has this sort of view, that you must experience the result of karma in precisely the same way that you created the karma, then there can be no living of the spiritual life and there's no chance of making an end of suffering. Right? Then the second paragraph, he modifies that statement and says that whatever karma, the result of which are to be experienced in a certain way, is created, then the results of the karma have to be experienced in that way. When one has this view, then it is possible to live the holy life and to make an end of suffering. So he's talking about making an end of suffering right from the beginning. Right? And so all these explanations about the two different types of persons, one goes to hell, one doesn't go to hell because he's undeveloped or developed in body, virtue, mind, and wisdom, refer to that of an arahant. Okay, so I have a few comments to make about our tabulation of the cross-references. One is we see that sometimes the same terms are used with different meanings depending on context. In particular, the composite term, developed in body, in virtuous behavior, in mind and wisdom, they are used with three different meanings in three different suttas. One is arahant and below, another is an arahant, and the third is not an arahant. Alright, so although the words are the same, the meaning is different depending on context. So we must be careful not to simply copy and paste out of context. That's why I asked you whether you read the whole of MN 36, Mahasacaka Sutta, because that sutta where the Buddha explicitly defined the meanings of undeveloped or developed in body and in mind based on specific context. And then the word kāya. The word kāya has been translated as body, and it can be very misleading, very confusing also. Why should pleasant feelings only be connected with the body? Why should vipassanā only be connected with the body? We always thought that vipassanā was mind work. How come now it's body work? Okay, so although in most cases the word kāya means the body, the physical body, but in this case, when you find it being used as developed in kāya, right? Or when you see the word kāya sati, or you see the word kāya gata sati, it does not necessarily mean body. Kāya sati is usually translated as mindfulness of the body. Kāya gata sati is usually translated as mindfulness directed to the body. But this can be very misleading. For many, many years, when I was a young monk, until just a few years ago, maybe until I started to prepare for my Satipatthana workshop, that is in 2012, right? Maybe 2011 or so. When I was a young man, until 2011, I was trying to figure out what is meant by this develop in body. Why is that different from develop in virtuous behavior? Isn't virtuous behavior connected with the body? So I couldn't figure out the answer until I came across one book which showed very clearly that kāya need not necessarily mean body in a conventional sense, but it means the subjective experiencer. You might wonder, who is the subjective experiencer? And why is kāya the subjective experiencer? Now let's look at the exaltation of the Buddha in Bharadwaja Sutta, where he talks about restraint of the sense faculties. There he said, I'm paraphrasing him, having perceived a sight with the eye, the bhikkhu does not grasp its signs or features. He guards the faculty of the eye so that he is not invaded by evil, unwholesome states of likes and dislikes. So you see all those words in red, that's the subjective experiencer. Now the Buddha went on to apply this same process to each of the other senses. Not just the eye, not just the ear, not just the nose, not just the tongue, not just the body, but the mind itself. So you can see that the organs, the sense organs, eye, ear, nose, tongue, body, and mind are separate from the subjective experiencer. Correct? Having perceived a mental object with the mind, the bhikkhu does not grasp its signs or features. He guards the faculty of the mind so that he is not invaded by evil, unwholesome states of likes and dislikes. So the mind is not the subjective experiencer. The mind is another thing. The mind is a sense organ, just like the eye. You understand? Right, so you can see that the Buddha here is straddling between ultimate reality and conventional reality. On the one hand, when he talks about the six senses, he's talking about ultimate reality. On the other hand, when he talks about the subjective experiencer, he's talking about conventional reality. For example, just now when we were doing the guided meditation, right? I told you that keeping track of the sense objects is not an end in itself. It's only a means. It's just only to settle your mind, disengage your mind from compulsive thinking. If the mind is busy with sense objects, you will have no time to think. At first, I asked you to just pay attention to the sense objects, right? And later, when your mind has become more settled and your thoughts are more far apart and you can gaps in between, I ask you to look back at the subject rather than the object. All right? The subject is the one that is reacting to what is perceived at the senses. You see something, then there is a comment going on in your mind, a judgment, a comment, a thought, right? That is a subjective experiencer. And in our last guided meditation, I asked you to stay absolutely still, don't move, don't even blink without noticing the intention, right? Then you begin to notice intentions, right? You wanted to move, but because I said don't move, you restrain yourself. But if I had not told you not to move, you would have just moved unconsciously. You would have just scratched unconsciously. Correct? So this exercise trains your mind to catch the initial intention, the urge, before a voluntary action occurs. Yeah? Once you learn how to catch the initial intention, that initial urge, then you will know how to observe the subjective experiencer. This is even more obvious when you meditate with your eyes open, because there are so many distractions. You see something, the mind already start to comment. Okay, bored already, want to know this, want to know that, or start to comment and judge whatever you see. Right? So that's why it actually is very, very useful and beneficial to train your mind to practice with the eyes open. Because in your daily life, your eyes are open most of the time. And there's a time when a lot of things happen in your head. There are lots of commentaries and judgments going on in your mind all the time. There's a chatter there in the background. And most people don't even notice it. So if you practice this open awareness, coming back to your senses as often as you can, in as many aspects of your life as you can, then you train your mind to be more in the present moment. When you're in the present moment with the senses, then your mind is composed because it is not distracted by idle chatter and useless talk, useless thoughts and imagination. So in that state of dynamic composure, dynamic samadhi, I call it, when your mind has been trained sufficiently, you are mostly in the present moment, not like most people who are living up in their head most of the time. You are mostly in the present moment. And any time that your mind runs off, any comments, any judgments, any commentary, any chatter that arises, you will be able to catch it immediately. And that's the start of practice. Start of vipassanā. Then you begin to notice how things change. Right? That's why I said just now, when the mind settles down, look at the subject more than the object. See how the subject changes. It changes from one object to another, right? Sometimes it's aware of the sound, sometimes it's aware of sensation, sometimes it's aware of a thought, a comment, a seeing. So it's moving all the time. Then with more and more practice, you go deeper. Instead of just seeing things coming and going, arising and passing away, then you look further to look into the causes and conditions. Why am I having this persistent judgment about this person? Why am I having this habitual reaction towards this person or towards such a behavior? So you can actually do psychotherapy yourself. You don't have to go and see Dr. Pang. Ask yourself why. All our behavior is a result of past conditioning and present circumstances. So it's a matter of just looking back, introspective awareness. But in order to do that effectively, you have to be continuous in your practice. Train your mind to come back to the present moment. Be with the senses as often as you can. And you got no excuse, like I said earlier. No excuse to say, oh, my breath is not clear lah, rising and falling not clear lah. Because all the objects are there, at least one object will be clear. So as long as you're with one of the sense objects, at that time, you are free from compulsive thinking. So if you want to be free from your worries temporarily, come back to the present moment. When your mind is more composed, you can go back and investigate what is the cause of the worry and how to resolve it. No point trying to think about it when the mind is still in a state of dis-ease and distraction. Okay, so that is why kāya is a subjective experiencer, and I got this from this book called Mindfulness in Early Buddhism, written by Sifu Guan, who is now a professor in Taiwan. This was his PhD thesis. Mindfulness in Early Buddhism, New Approaches to Psychology and Textual Analysis of Pali, Chinese and Sanskrit Sources. Now he's a Chinese, Taiwanese. So for him, to translate kāya as a subjective experiencer doesn't need much of mental acrobatics. Because in Chinese, we have the word 本身, right? 本身, right? The 身 is the kāya. Yeah, 本身 is oneself, correct? 本身 oneself, that 身 is kāya. And there's nhân身. nhân身 is kāya sati. Right? So that to him, kāya as 身 is yourself. It's a subjective experiencer. It's not necessarily the physical body. And so for him, it's easy to understand. For Westerners, it's difficult to understand because body means body, not the self. The Burmese also use the word kāya in the Burmese form, ko, to mean self. Not only the body, but also to mean the self. And this is found in chapter 4 of his book. It's called Kāya Sati, Mindfulness Directed to the Experiencer. Kāya Gata Sati. Kāya Gata Sati is usually translated as I said earlier, mindfulness directed to the body. And his conclusion here is that kāya is a locus of our subjective experience through the senses. The quote that he quoted above is from another book by one English woman who is also a Pali scholar by the name of Sue Hamilton. She wrote, "What really matters is understanding one's experience. It is this, no more and no less, that brings liberating insight. And in focusing his teachings solely on the means to achieving that insight, the Buddha metaphorically relates the different aspects of what we think of as the world around us to one's subjective experience." So this is not so easy to understand because she's English and the English is very high flown. But if you read Sifu Guan, it's very simple because he writes in simple English.